Candlestick Park, where they still intend to play on Tuesday. The good news is the teams are back at the ballpark. For Peter Gammon's Chris Myers live from Candlestick, let's go back to Charlie Steiner.
All right, Chris, thanks very much. Speed Week is coming up next. I'll be doing some double duty tonight, and I'll see you again at 11:30 along with Bill Packard. I'm Charlie Steiner. See ya.
Brought to you by Green, the air of quality. In Winston Cup, this tangle results in a cry for disciplinary action. In kart, this incident leads to probation. And the All-Stars take to the air in Ohio. This and more next on Speed Week.
Speedweek is brought to you by Dodge Cars and Trucks. On the street or off the road, it's the new spirit of Dodge.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Speed Week. I'm Bob Jenkins. As you know by now, on Tuesday, a terrible earthquake hit Central California, an area of the country where auto racing is very popular. And that area hosted the final IndyCar race on Sunday at Laguna Seca and the kart banquet on Monday night. Now, kart officials were unable to get out of San Francisco, but all have been accounted for and are okay. News regarding the rest of the racing community not as good, with phone lines jammed and power lines down. Information is very hard to get, but we hear that Tim Coffeen, a former mechanic for the Machinist Union racing team, currently with Newman Haas, has been reported missing. And the Mickey Thompson off-road race scheduled for next Saturday at Candlestick Park has been canceled. Well, we do have racing action for you tonight, starting off with NASCAR. The Holly Farms 400 at North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, the final short track Winston Cup race of the year, will be remembered for a long time. Now, by comparing the Winston Cup points before and after the race, you'd think that little happened, but that was far from the way it really was.
The lineup was determined according to points before Charlotte, so Dale Earnhardt was on the pole, Rusty Wallace alongside, and Mark Martin inside row 2. Now, Earnhardt had lost the points lead to Rusty at Charlotte, but was determined to get it back, jumping out to a big lead and holding it for most of the 400 laps. Martin also led, although he had complained before the race about not being comfortable with the radial tires, and it was during his early pace that Jeff Bodine, who simply wasn't running well, went a lap down. But when Larry Pearson, Hut Strickland, and Kyle Petty got tangled up on the front stretch, watch the yellow streak, that's Bodine, he got his lap back, passing then leader Earnhardt. Rusty, meanwhile, was never a leader and never a real threat. He stayed on the lead lap all day, but obviously wasn't going to win. So who was? Well, most would have put their money on Earnhardt until the last lap. That's when Ricky Rudd made his bid. Recall last year, these two were sent to the penalty box for rough driving. If Dale can win, he'll go back into the points lead. Rusty is currently running 10th. As they came down for the white flag, Ricky pulled alongside Dale. Into turn 1, they touch, both slide toward the outside wall. Bodine is waiting in third place for something like this to happen. He inherits the lead and wins his first since June of '88. Meanwhile, on pit road, Dale and Ricky have gathered their pit crews together for a, shall we say, discussion. There are lots of heated words, but no blows are exchanged.
Well, I don't know. Dale and I got together. His handling went away after that last restart, and I got on the inside of him. I felt like he came down on me. I don't know. All I know is we got together. You know, I hated that happen. We were going to have a good run for the victory there.
I gave him the whole bottom lane. He knocked the out of this way.
How will this affect your championship view from here on? You got 3 more to go.
What do you think? They ought to find it. Make him sit out the rest of the year, I think.
The incident was costly for Dale. Rusty's 7th place finish resulted in a 2-point net gain. He's now 37 ahead. Martin was the big winner, gaining a total of 29. He's now only 128 behind with 3 races to go.
That last lap crash certainly has created a lot of controversy. Who do you think was to blame, Dale Earnhardt or Ricky Rudd? Dial 1-900-990-9000 on your touch-tone phone to participate in our unscientific survey. To vote for Earnhardt, press 1. To vote for Rudd, press number 2. Each call costs 95 cents. Every 40th caller will receive this poster of the Dodge Viper, provided to us by the Dodge Division of Chrysler Motors. Well, the next race on the Winston Cup schedule is at Rockingham this weekend, and John Kernan is standing by there with the latest. John?
Well, Bob, just as the weather has here in the southeast, the tempers have also cooled off this week. Both participants in last Sunday's last lap mishap seem to be in better spirits today. In fact, after a visit with Dick Beatty, Earnhardt suffered a case of short-term amnesia.
What happened last week? We're at Rockingham, another race. No, there's not. I don't want to talk about it.
While Dale has chosen to put the whole thing behind him, Rudd remembers it all too clearly.
What happened is I clearly got under him coming off a fourth, square with him, side by side with him. And, got into the corner and we both ended up spinning out. But it wasn't a forced move, and as far as if I didn't fill that hole, I'd probably be looking for a job right now because if I was a car owner, I wouldn't want a driver that wouldn't take that chance.
That's exactly the type of driver Earnhardt is. More often than not, it pays off. So don't look for him to back off.
I ain't being conservative. I'm gonna go out and race hard as I can and try to put everybody behind me as I can.
I'm not so sure that I wouldn't have pinched him down had I been on the same situation. I would have the only thing I would have done is made sure that I didn't wreck myself, I guess. And I thought it was a good clean move and got on the inside of him. But as far as racing goes, I think that's why people keep coming back to watch these things. I mean, it's never over till it's over. You never know what to expect until the checker flag falls.
Well, Bob, if you're thinking about some sort of retaliation on Earnhardt's part, remember he's in a heated Winston Cup points battle, trailing Rusty Wallace by only 37, and he can't afford to do anything like that.
All right, thank you, John. Of course, we'll have live coverage of the AC Delco 500 from Rockingham Sunday at 12:30 Eastern Time. Remember last week's phone poll question? It was, what's your biggest complaint about the races you've attended this year? We gave you 5 categories from which to choose, and you said high ticket prices were your biggest complaint. 25% of you said poor track facilities were your biggest gripe. Lack of competition got 7%. Failure to start on time got 5% of the vote, and all of the above got 19%. Now, while our phone polls are totally unscientific, track promoters are watching and listening to your complaints.
Speedweek is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil, the big always has, always will. And by Dodge Cars and Trucks. On the street or off the road, it's the new spirit of Dodge.
Coming up, a recovery is made even sweeter. And the comeback trail ends where it began.
There's a rough road ahead with no end in sight. Quaker State engines don't know when to quit.
Quaker State is quality engineered to exceed every single American, European, and Japanese car maker's U.S. requirements for maximum engine protection.
So pistons are protected from friction mile after mile. Valves are protected from wear year in, year out.
That's why Quaker State engines run strong and run long.
Quaker State engines don't know when to quit.
The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
Even when it's standing still, there's something about a fuel-injected, turbo-powered Dodge Daytona Shelby that'll blow you away.
Members of the National Council of Corvette Clubs. To them, there's no car but a vet and no tire but a Goodyear Eagle ZR. We invited them to a showdown, Dunlop D40 M2 against Eagle ZR. Slaloms on wet and dry roads. Hard cornering. Braking. Comfort and noise on the highway. Which tire would they buy now? All 10 pick the Dunlop D40 M2. Dunlop outperforms.
Nature's light. Bathing fields of grain. Enriching full, fresh hops. Giving life to sparkling streams, nourishing all the natural things that go into making Bud Light. The light beer that's beechwood aged for a clean, fresh taste that makes Bud Light the one light that outshines them all.
As we told you earlier, there was a big racing weekend at Laguna Seca. On Saturday, during the Marlboro Challenge, Bobby Rahal was fined for blatantly blocking Teo Fabi on the last lap of the race. Fabi passed Rahal as the two entered turn number 1 and then decided to give him a brake test. Fabi was also fined and placed on probation until June 17th of next year. Alonso Jr. won the $252,000 first place prize. Then the next day, the final IndyCar race of this year.
Emerson Fittipaldi had already clinched the points title, so with artist Leroy Neiman in attendance, it was time for some of the other kart stars and cars to shine. Rick Mears was on the pole. He's only had one other road course pole in his career, and that was 7 years ago. A big field of cars, 31 showed up, 28 started. Retired baseball star Reggie Jackson passed on watching his former team in the World Series and watched the start from the Penske pits. Danny Sullivan, after leading the first 2 circuits, pitted with brake problems and fell from contention. That put Mears in the lead with Little Al on his tail. Now, Rick would have won the Portland race earlier this year, but ran out of fuel, a scenario that was on the minds of everybody. A day earlier in the Marlboro Challenge, Mario Andretti could run only 2 laps full bore because his fuel economy was so bad. But today, he's got things figured out and leads after the first set of pit stops. In the past, Laguna Seca has been good to Teo Fabi, but not today. While running in 7th, he loses control and backs his Porsche into the wall. After several minutes, the Horton safety team will extricate him. Teo suffers a slight concussion and broken vertebrae, but the injuries won't disrupt his career. The extended yellow means that the drivers no longer have to be fuel conscious. It will now become a race to the finish. And one of those in contention is Kevin Cogan in his last race with the Machinists Union. He ran as high as 2nd before pitting for fuel with just a few laps remaining. But at the end, Mears was able to hold off Mario for the win. Al Jr. was 3rd. It was Rick's first road course victory since suffering severe foot and leg injuries in a crash in 1984.
Now you're in victory lane, the last race of the year in 1989, and you have won a road race for the first time in the 80s, so to speak. How does it feel?
Well, maybe there is hope for us old circle track drivers after all.
Here's the way the 1989 kart PPG points break down. Emerson Fittipaldi is the champion, followed by Mears, Michael Andretti, Fabi, and Alonso Jr. The second 5 consist of Mario, Danny, Scott Pruett, the leading non-Chevrolet driver, Bobby Rahal, and Ari Lyondike.
The top 20 in points shared in the $1.5 million handed out of the kart banquet Monday night. Fittipaldi took home a record $410,000, pushing his earnings for the year to another record $2.12 million. Immo, we hear, is still negotiating with Roger Penske to join Rick Mears and Danny Sullivan on a 3-car Penske racing team next year. And then there's the rumor about John Andretti.
Have you and Uncle Mario and Cousin Michael talked about the possibility of a 3-car team?
That's for me to know and you to find out, Gary.
You just answered my question.
The American Racing Series also concluded last weekend at Laguna Seca. Going in, Mike Groff had an 8-point lead over Tommy Byrne. In order to win the championship, Byrne had to sit on the pole, lead the most laps, and win the race.
Part 1 of the plan was successful. Tommy would start from the pole, Groff 8th. Pressure? What pressure? At the green, Byrne jumped to the early lead. Groff moved to 5th. But passing on the demanding 2.2-mile course is not easy. Jim Vassar's bonsai move under Vinicio Salmi reminded us of Fabrizio Barbaza a couple of years ago. Byrne, meanwhile, appeared to be having an easy time of it, leading the first 30 laps. But then, with 4 circuits to go, Australian Arthur Abraham loses it in turn 11. He overcorrects and takes the Irishman into the wall. The championship is gone. Meanwhile, Mike Groff's crew goes crazy. All their driver has to do is hold his position. He's in 2nd. Behind the new leader, Johnny O'Connell, badly injured in a crash at Nazareth just 2 weeks ago. O'Connell, unable to shift because of an injured left ankle, goes on to take his first ever ARS win.
You know, this morning in warm-up, the car felt good, and in the race, it got, you know, you hate to win them like that.
What were the thoughts inside the helmet when you saw what had transpired in front of you?
Oh, I couldn't believe it. It was, you know, it was just exactly what we needed. Tommy was running real good, and that's exactly what we needed to have happen. And, you know, I'm sorry for Tommy, but I'm glad to win the championship.
Car was going better than ever it did before. With 5 laps to go, you know, nobody can account for that kind of thing. But, you know, as I said, I just told my friends here, nobody died.
It's the 2nd year in a row that Byrne has lost the championship in the final event.
14th century. A weapon revolutionized medieval warfare and became a symbol of freedom. It was the crossbow, the trademark of William Tell.
No one rests until Tell is found.
I've been pushed hard, Roland. My village was burned to the ground. My family was torn apart. My son was kidnapped by the Emperor.
Crush them!
Crossbow, only on the Family Channel.
At Lynn Chevrolet Buick Geo, we're having a going-away party. Who's leaving? All our remaining 89s get special prices and great deals on brand new 89s. Or stop in and look at all the new 1990 models, Chevrolets, Geos, and premium motor cars by Buick. All available in great selection for you to test drive. Plus, mention this ad and get a free Lynn Chevrolet baseball cap. Whether it's an 89 or 90, you can't lose when you buy from Lynn Chevrolet Buick Geo in Pontiac, where service makes friends.
Races remain as NASCAR's Rusty Wallace and Dale Earnhardt continue their tight battle for the championship. See the AC Delco 500 Sunday afternoon at 12:30 Eastern live on ESPN.
Two titles were decided, one remains in question, and a comeback was completed at the NHRA Fall Nationals at Firebird Raceway near Phoenix.
Before Bob Glidden lined up in the finals against Darrell Alderman, he had already clinched the World Championship. But Alderman is going to be tough to beat. His Dodge Daytona hasn't lost this year in 3 final round appearances. Darrell is first off the line, and although Glidden has a faster ET, Alderman wins again. But Glidden isn't a loser. It's his 10th Pro Stock title and 5th straight. Shirley Muldowney has made it to the finals for the 3rd time in the last 6 meets, but she hasn't won yet. It would be ironic if she could win here today at Firebird. This is where she returned to racing in 1986 after a crash in Canada in 1984. Her opponent is Darrell Gwynn.
I didn't let anything distract me, put it in the lights, deep staged it, and away we went. And about half track, he wasn't there, and I went, this is it. Today is our day, and I'm very, very thankful.
It was her first win in more than 6 years and the 18th of her career. For Shirley and husband and crew chief Ron Tobler, it's a successful end to a long comeback.
The Top Fuel title will be decided at the final event of the year next weekend in Pomona, California. Gary Ormsby still leads Joe Amato, but by only 572 points. The other division championship that was decided, well, Rick DeBrule has the story of the man who knocked the king off his throne.
Bruce Larson came into the Fall Nationals here at Firebird Raceway near Phoenix, knowing he had a pretty good chance of winning the Funny Car Championship. What he didn't know if he was going to win both the championship and the race on the same day. But to find out the answer to that, he really didn't have to go too far, because when they handed out pit assignments, the guy they put him next to was Don the Snake Prudhomme, the man he had to face in the finals.
All Larson needed to clinch his first Funny Car Championship was to win his first round. But when he did, beating R.C. Sherman, there was no time to celebrate. He had another round to get ready for. But it did change his outlook.
It was the relief of a lot of pressure that's been built up for, at least half the season. We've had a tremendous amount of pressure on the crew, and the sponsors have been watching us and saying we're doing a good job, but they wanted us to see us win the World Championship. All that pressure was something new to me.
Not that Larson isn't used to winning. He has been drag racing since 1954, making a name for himself along the East Coast. Back in the mid-'60s, he held the old NHRA A Sports and AA Sports records. But he never did seem to break into that top group of funny car drivers. And in fact, at one point, he had to scale back his operation drastically just to stay afloat. But he didn't give up.
I used to always say to prospective sponsors or people that were involved, we want to win the World Championship, but I said it with tongue-in-cheek. And then probably about 4 years ago, it started to get real when we got sponsorship from Century Tax and Gauges, and when we got on Joe Amato's team, and we knew that we were lined up for it.
The Fall National race was simply an example of that. He beat Sherman, Ed McCullough, and Kenny Bernstein until he finally faced Don Prudhomme in the finals.
Prudhomme started to smoke his tires a little bit before I did, I guess, but I smoked mine a good ways too, so it was just a battle to hold the car straight and get there before him.
It was his 5th national victory this year, and for Larson, it means he can race the rest of the year just like he did 30 years ago, for fun. In Phoenix, I'm Rick DeBrule reporting for Speedweek.
Presenting a superbly engineered high-performance machine. One that's been race-bred by the world's finest drivers to deliver the ultimate overall performance. What do we call this masterpiece of engineering? Bosch Platinum, the ultimate spark plug. Drive it today and find out for yourself why so many champions prefer Bosch.
Available at Kmart and other fine auto parts stores. Installed at most Precision Tune Centers.
Members of the National Council of Corvette Clubs. To them, there's no car but a vet and no tire but a Goodyear Eagle ZR. We invited them to a showdown. Dunlop D40 M2 against Eagle ZR. Slaloms on wet and dry roads. Hard cornering. Braking. Comfort and noise on the highway. Which tire would they buy now? All 10 pick the Dunlop D40 M2. Dunlop outperforms.
A college football tripleheader starts with Michigan State storming Illinois. Then undefeated NC State battles Clemson and Auburn faces Florida State. All live Saturday, only on ESPN.
Much of the historic video seen on ESPN Speedweek is courtesy of Dick Wallen's Racing Classics. The champion of the All-Star Sprint Car organization had already been decided when that group invaded Eldora Speedway in Ohio last weekend. So Saturday night was just for fun and money.
The 1989 champion is 21-year-old Robbie Stanley, who it just so happens will also be the club's Rookie of the Year. Here's last year's champ Joe Gertie, who this year is in the top 5 of World of Outlaw points. French fry nibbling race fans of all ages will enjoy sprints and late models here tonight. They'll also see some breathtaking crashes like this one involving Kevin Thomas. Although knocked unconscious, he wasn't injured. In the main event, the final points-paying race of the year for the All-Stars, Tony Elliott in the yellow number 2 will be able to pass the white number 1 of Lee Brewer before the end of the first lap and become the first leader. Later, while Elliott's running second and trying to lap Rodney Duncan, a collision sends both cars into wild flips. A lot of damaged equipment, but neither driver require hospitalization. After the restart, Jack Hewitt took control and won this race in a special 10-lapper worth $3 grand. Also on the card, the 20th annual Johnny Appleseed late model race, and a preliminary found Steve Francis, Tony Lang, Terry Hall, and Gary Herbert all wishing they were in some other line of work. Again, no injuries. The driver of number 14, Ed Jeffries, did suffer serious injuries when his car hit the end of the pit exit on the backstretch. Also involved number 1, John Gill. The outcome of this late model A main was decided when number 5, John Lawhorn, passed number 68, John Rhodes. Lawhorn went on to win.
Well, you won't find John Alesi in a dirt late model, but if he got in one, he'd probably find a way to go fast. Alesi has been the talk of the Formula One circuit this season. He scored points at his very first race and has been impressive ever since. Well, last weekend he was at Laguna Seca competing in the IMSA GTO race driving a Ferrari. George Kecklin spoke with the young Frenchman.
Excuse me asking, but you drive for Tyrrell. What are you doing driving a Ferrari?
Because it's so fantastic to drive this type of car.
But where does it come? Does it have anything to do with John Sage?
Yes, with Ferrari France, because I start this winter to test this car, and they asked me if I would like to race in America. I was very happy.
Laguna Seca was the setting for the worldwide debut of this Ferrari F40 LM, entered by Ferrari of France and driven by Alesi. Although it was second fast in qualifying to Audi's Hans Stuck, the Ferrari led the first 10 minutes of the one-hour contest before Hans was able to pass between turns 5 and 6. Stuck held the lead for the rest of the way, finishing about 7 seconds ahead of his Audi teammate, Hurley Haywood. Alesi drove the Ferrari to third place and was named winner of the Norelco Drivers' Cup.
I like to have a F40 personally on the road, so I enjoyed the look at him from the back, but then he made a couple of small mistakes, had an easy pass, and then my car was running fine till the end. I had a terrible misfire, as anybody could hear, and I was just hoping that it lasted till the end, and it lasted, and I'm glad, you know.
Stuck is one of 3 drivers trying to win the GTO championship this weekend at Del Mar. John Alesi won't be there. He'll be competing in the Grand Prix of Japan Formula One race. Airtime Sunday night at midnight Eastern here on ESPN. SCCA's biggest racing weekend of the year is the Valvoline Runoffs. Ron Massotti has highlights from a few of the major divisions.
over 500 drivers and their crews convened at the 2.5-mile North Georgia facility to compete for 22 national championships. The Formula Ford title was won by Richard Bammer of Marco, Florida. Bammer moved from his second qualifying spot to lead flag to flag in a hotly contested 31-car field. The thundering GT1 gold medal was won by Morris Clement of Collinsville, Illinois. Clement, a past GT2 champion, dominated the GT1 scene by winning the pole with a new lap record and leading every lap to victory. 21-year-old Wayne Serbo of Towako, New Jersey, was crowned a Formula Atlantic champion in only his third year of racing. Tom Foster of Hickman, California, took his 7th national championship in C Sports Racing in a runaway domination as Tracer teammate Chuck Billington of Modesto, California, took second, just ahead of Californian rival Nancy James. The E-Production laurels were won by Joe Cogbill of Norcross, Georgia, after avoiding both a second lap mishap and battling his second-place rival Rock Best of Louisville, North Carolina. In showroom stock GT, Boris Said III of Stamford, Connecticut, led a freight train of Camaros and Mustangs to his first national championship. For Speedweek, I'm Ron Masadi.
The Valvoline runoffs were marred by the death of Formula Atlantic driver Scott Liebler of Manhattan, Kansas.
From dawn's early light till the sun is set, Quaker State engines don't know when to quit.
Quaker State exceeds every single car maker's U.S. requirements for maximum engine protection. That's why in Atlanta, Georgia, the engine in every fire truck, every police car, every Atlanta city-owned vehicle is a Quaker State engine.
Quaker State engines don't know when to quit.
The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
M is for the million things she gave me. O means only that she's growing old. T is for the tears were shed to save me. H is for her heart of purest gold.
Moms and compact cars like the hot little Dodge Shadow. Somehow they aren't making them like they used to.
Desperate drivers do desperate things. Alain Prost needs one win to clinch the championship. Ayrton Senna will try to stop him. See the drama at the Grand Prix of Japan, Sunday at midnight Eastern on ESPN. You're watching ESPN, the Total Sports Network.
And finally, some of the things IndyCar drivers enjoy the most when they go to the Monterey area of California: the restaurants, the beaches, and the golf courses. Late last week, competitors in the Marlboro Challenge gathered for a round.
What a difference a year makes. In 1988, Danny Sullivan was trying to win his first national championship. This year, well, a broken wrist ruined his chances of repeating, but the stiff wrist actually has helped his golf game. Today, a round with former U.S. Olympic skier and the husband of Chris Everett, Andy Mill. Sullivan handed out the driving tips, while Andy obliged on the green with some putting advice. Must have helped. Danny shoots the lowest among drivers.
This is
but it was Mill who
ESPN,
finally
the Total
revealed
Sports
Danny's
Network.
secret.
The most important thing is watch his lips. He makes it look like a duck, you know? When he gets really puckered out there like that, he really hits it good.
Speaking of secrets, this one's out of the bag. Scott Pruett obviously doesn't have a golf game in his Nintendo set. Now, to some, Scott is considered the perfect PR driver, always displaying the correct mannerisms. The swing is good. Then, of course, searching far down the fairway for that well-placed shot. Well, Scott doesn't know it yet, but our well-hidden camera has spotted the ball before Scott did. That's when we caught Scott at his best.
You know, I really don't get a chance to play that much, but it's nice when you get an opportunity to come, you know, out here like today and with the Marlboro people, and especially with the challenge coming up this weekend, to spend a little time with some of the guys, because you never do. I mean, you never really have a chance to visit and spend some time with some of the press people or some of the sponsors and so on. So this is a nice opportunity to do that.
But it's safe to say you're not going to give up auto racing for the PGA.
Without a doubt, I think my career still is in racing.
Well, Scott was in Candlestick Park Tuesday night when the earthquake struck, but he returned safely to his home in Ohio yesterday. Now, don't forget our Speedweek phone poll question this week. Was Dale Earnhardt or Ricky Rudd to blame in last Sunday's race-ending crash at North Wilkesboro? Dial 1-900-990-9000 to let us know. Every 40th caller will receive a Dodge Viper poster courtesy of the Dodge Division of Chrysler Motors. And that's it for now. We'll see you at 12:30 Eastern Time from Rockingham on Sunday. We leave you with the last lap from North Wilkesboro. So long, everyone.
Speedweek has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.